What's up, guys? Feño from the Fights here. Here to do a Q&A. So I'm going to answer some questions. I hit you guys up on Twitter, and yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions, and this was like 3 weeks ago, so I tried to answer most of them. Let's see how this goes. So yeah, I mean, heads up, I'm gonna butcher a lot of names. I'm gonna butcher a lot of Twitter handles, so you guys will have to live with that. Okay, so Kiran Singh asks me, who's your favorite fighter that never made the top 10? I would have to think about that. To mind comes like Alan Jovan. I always liked. He was fun. I like when he beat Mike Perry. Before beating Mike Perry was cool. Damn, who else? Also, I don't know. David Tamer. I mean, the good Tamer, because one of them sucks. The one that lost to Oliveira. I like him a lot. And there's also Gutierrez down in bantamweight. He might crack the top 10 eventually, but not yet. He's very cool. So those three, I think, would be my answers. Joanna Dangerfield asks me, when considering how good a fight is, how do you prioritize the following? Or if you see completely different criteria, how do you rank those? So general violence, technical skills, stakes, the length and duration, bizarreness, and general tomfoolery. I mean, I don't know, man. When it comes to a fight, what makes a fight good is mostly a vibe. I mean, I don't have like established criteria about it, but yeah, I mean, I think the important things to me are very important. I mean, I like action, like not necessarily like strikes landing the whole time or crazy scrambles, but I want to see fighters working towards a goal the whole time. I think that's very important. Fighters actively doing stuff to achieve what their game plan is supposed to do. Also, I think I like fights being interesting. I think a lot of fights are very action-packed, but they like nuance. Like, it's fighters doing the same thing over and over, and it's not only about adjustments, but adjustments play a big time, play a big factor deciding that. But yeah, I mean, it's fighters doing cool shit, and not everything. I mean, when you've been watching fights for as long as I have, not everything not everything that happens in a fight seems cool to you. So I would say yeah, those. And the stakes can be very important. I think main events or fights that are very important for fighters, especially during live watchings, can add a lot to a fight. Sometimes those on rewatch go away, and I think that's a very important distinction as well. Some fights are very good on live watching, but not so good on rewatch, and some fights just get better and better with the rewatch every time you rewatch them. But yeah, I think it's like intelligent activity and adjustments and interesting stuff that's happening. I think that's what I like to see in a fight. I think that's what makes a good fight, in my humble opinion. And Joanna also asks, define mental toughness. I think mental toughness is, there's a lot of factors that include mental toughness in MMA. I think one of the more importance for me, I think, is when a fighter has to put themselves in an uncomfortable position to win. You know, like some fighters. I was just rewatching like Valentina fights today. I rewatched the Lauren Murphy and the vshagen fights, and I don't know. I mean, Valentina is so much better than these girls that they're fighting. But one thing that strikes me is that they're not willing to take risks anymore as the fight goes on. And I think a mentally tough fighter has the ability to push through those moments, like when everything you're doing seems to not be working and you still like take risks. Obviously you cannot always take risks in MMA because they're like, the risks are very real in the sport. A concussion is no joke, an injury is no joke. Losing big time is also like not a joke, can ruin your career if the perception of the public is bad enough. So, but yeah, I mean, I think mental toughness is pushing when you're uncomfortable and be willing to be put on those positions in order to win. I think that I think it's like the most primordial thing about it. Ryan Thomas MMA asks me, explain Joel Romero please. My co-host of the full previews, Dan Albert, has a very good article about him, but to me, like, Romero is like incredibly athleticism, incredible feel for fighting. I mean, he's like an awesome level, but also like, I think he lacks focus in. He's a vibe, you know, like he just feels fighting, but sometimes I think he's so field based that he lacks on the putting together a coherent plan and game plan and winning rounds. And I think that's where Romero like fails. I mean, not fail, I mean, he's an incredible fighter, but that's the barrier that keeps him from basically being the best of all time. Oh, more Joanna here. Do you think defense should be written into the scoring criteria, or is defense its own reward? I do not think defense should be on the criteria. I think only offense should be scored, really. I'm against scoring like control and aggression and all that. It's just damage for me. Defense, you should be very good at defense because it disables the opponent from doing damage to you, and I think that's its own reward, as you yourself just said. She also asks, why did you become an MMA analyst? I mean, did I become one at one moment? I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, I was a very big fan I was a very big fan of MMA for a long time, and I started like reading. I don't know how I got to Jack's articles, but I think that's what like opened my eyes in the sense of seeing the sport in a different level. I was already training at the time. I was training Muay Thai. I wanted to get better, so I think I was in the look for a better understanding of combat sports. And then from there I found the heavy hands guys. I used to read a lot of Conor Rubich articles back in the day, and I also found Ryan. That bastard used to be the best. Don't know what happened to him though. I think he's dead. Oh, Matt Yoya asks me, who are the most underrated backtakers in MMA, and what is the meta behind securing the back? This is interesting. Underrated, I don't know. I mean, Ben is your body, so you've heard about Sterling all the time, but yeah, he's incredible at taking the back. But I don't think he's underrated anymore after what he did to Jan. I think TJ Dillashaw used to be a very good backtaker. A bit disappointed that he couldn't take the back of Corey Sanhagen. I think he had trouble with length there. The meta, I think a lot of fighters are moving away from taking the back because number one, they're not very good at it. They don't want to invest the time in getting very good at taking the back, and that means that when you have the opportunity to take the back, it's a dangerous situation because you can lose and end up on bottom position. But I think the opportunities are there because a lot of the get up meta right now in MMA consists so much on giving up your back, and Khabib was like an incredible specialist that took advantage of fighters who were giving their back. He was not the best at the rear naked choke. I mean, obviously he can eventually get it. I mean, just as Conor and Dustin, but it wasn't like an end game position. But he was very good at taking advantage of fighters, using the wall walk and exposing their backs to get to their feet. So I think the current meta, like we will see a new wave of fighters that are very good at taking the back, and I think that could have repercussions on the get up meta, because right now there's like most than half fighters are giving up their backs to get up to their feet, and obviously like people will start taking advantage of that, just like those fighters are taking advantage of the fact that not a lot of people are willing to take backs. So yeah, I think it's the meta. It always evolves like that. It's very circular in some ways. Ryan, oh, apparently he's not dead. He asked me the worst fighter that beat Gagey. I respond with Hani Yaya at size parity. I'll go with that for now. Ed, the GOAT, asked me to explain athleticism. We use the word a lot in MMA, and obviously like athleticism is very sport dependent. Like you need some attributes, different attributes for different sports. I think for MMA, some things are usually like obviously are like natural attributes that fighters have that we don't count towards athleticism, or most people don't. For example, like your toughness, your shin, and cardio especially. Obviously cardio is like an athletic endeavor, but usually we understand athleticism in the context of MMA for someone that it's one of the next things. I think the most important, I mean, being powerful or explosive, it's very useful in MMA. Having the ability to react quickly, having quick reflexes, that it's sometimes tied but not always to being like an explosive or athletic athlete. And the other one that is very important, I think it's being like coordinated and having a good proprioception. I think those are very important, that allow you to put your techniques together, allow you to stay in good positions, and allow you to scramble naturally. Being strong is also something that I would include in athleticism, and plays a big factor in MMA. And yeah, I think those would be the big ones. I think cardio should be included too, but as the way we're using the word right now, I don't think most people include it there. But yeah. Vel asks me Cheeto's chances against the rest of the top 5. I mean, let me look at the top 5. Okay, so Sanhagen, very interesting fight. I think Cheeto can be dangerous, but I think Cheeto versus Corey is an interesting fight. But I think Corey is a bit of a dangerous matchup for Cheeto. I think he can do a lot of the stuff that Font did right on this fight without being as vulnerable, and the variety and the ability to exchange at kicking distance, and also like just having like incredible cheater shin and conditioning. I think that fight would be fireworks for sure, but I think I'm favoring Corey there. Cheeto can always win. Like, he's dangerous. He might have some stuff in the clinch. He might catch Corey in transitions. If Cheeto ends in top position, a legit grappler and very good ground and pound. So although we already saw, I think over 5 rounds Cheeto might have a better chance, but it's a very complicated matchup. TJ, I don't know where TJ is at. I mean, he looked very good against Corey, even though I do not think he won that fight. But also like he got injured very early in that fight, and also was dealing with a cut for most of the fight. So maybe I think he's looked pretty good already. My concern would be TJ can grapple him, because we saw Edgar take down Cheeto, and Cheeto's a good grappler. He can get up, but he can also get held in bottom position, and TJ is like a more dynamic wrestler than Frankie, and presents more trouble with the hands too. Like, Frankie's a bit slow right now and lacks a bit of pop, and I think TJ has those attributes to make it more interesting. And then we have Jan, and I don't even want to like put analysis on this. Like, it would be just crazy stuff. Like, it would be fireworks. I favor Jan, but it would be a crazy fight. That's all I care about. And against Sterling, I think Cheeto is bad news for Sterling in the field. Like, Sterling can keep him at bay and maybe win a round or two, but Cheeto probably like makes his read and make him very uncomfortable. The problem is that what if like Sterling like takes him down and just holds him there or submits him? We don't know yet. But yeah, I mean, it seems a bit rough. I think Cheeto is already higher in the ranks than anyone that he can beat like 100%. Everyone from here on seems very rough, but I think he has a path to victory against all of them. I'm not sure I would pick him outright against any of them, but I think there's like 0 unwinnable fights here. Jan might be the most complicated, but even there, I think Cheeto can win that. In a good day, you never know. Darth Knight asks, who is the next fighter to challenge Max or Bulk at 45, and why? That's interesting, because I don't know. I think for what we have seen until now, the best fighters after Max and Bulk, I would say, are Ortega and Kattar. And we already saw how Ortega did against both of them and Kattar did against Max. And I think Bulk is also a very bad matchup for Kelvin. So it's complicated. I think Ivloyev and Topuria will eventually get to the elite of the division. Will they be good enough to challenge against Max and Bulk, who are both like some of the best fighters we've seen all time in MMA? I'm not sure, but might be interesting. I think I have faith in those. Maybe there are more fighters in the come up. In the meantime, I wouldn't mind seeing like Arnold Allen or Emmett getting a shot at the title. I would never pick them to win, but hey, I mean, they need to keep busy, right? And they are good fighters. They present problems to either of them, so I think that would be interesting. Darth Knight also asks me about MMA's current inability to consistently teach pocket fundamentals and tools, and cage cutting imply for the next 10 years or so that there will always be more back foot long boys than pressure fighters just because it's less skill dependent. Obviously it's impossible to predict, but I think we have for sure seen an evolution of pocket boxing in MMA, especially at the lower weight classes. I think everyone at top 15 and bantamweight is, I mean, not like very competent, but they all have skills there, and it's getting better, and we're seeing fighters that can do a lot of stuff in the pocket. I mean, we're seeing like crazy exchanges between Corey Sanhagen and Peter Yan, and those are two guys with very different like builds. So I think it will get better, at least in the lower weight classes. I have a lot of faith that, especially with the boxing dominant meta that is going on right now in MMA, I think it will get better. So yeah, I have faith. When it comes to bigger weight classes, I'm not so sure. The development might be slower for sure, and you also have to consider that for bigger guys, sparring in the pocket is more dangerous just because they hit a lot harder and they're not like more resistant to concussions than small fighters. So a lot of fighters, I think the big guys, try to not spend so much time in the pocket or getting into wars, because I think there's also that part of MMA culture that differs from boxing culture, that they think that banging in the phone booth is like untechnical for some reason. I think that will be for sure a barrier. I think the long guys that learn the keep away tools will still be popular, but they will have to be more refined than they are now. I think Wonderboy is a good example of a guy that has a lot of tools to implement the Rangi striker game, even though he obviously has a lot of flaws. We've seen that those flaws are not as easy to exploit as we might have thought in the past, but for sure we'll see more of that, more than like early career John Jones that was just like very long and just like framing and avoiding everything via that. But yeah, that's my opinion. Miguel Class asks me, who are good outfighters, and in general, how does the outfighting metagame need to develop to deal with the current lot of pressure fighters? It takes on the opposite direction, but it's true. We have been seeing more pressure fighters lately. A lot of guys, in most fights, we've seen a fighter like take the back foot, take the front foot very aggressively, and I think it's because the outfighting, as alluding to what we were talking just a moment ago, have been lacking. I mean, the tools for a lot of outfighters have been rudimentary. I mean, calling back to two underrated fighters that I mentioned in the fighters that haven't made the top 10, I think Tamor and Gutierrez are good examples of outfighters. Like they just take the back foot like pretty hard, but have very good tools of fading and good movement side to side. They're also very good at grabbing clinches and pivoting off the clinch. That I think that's a great tool to have when you are an outfighter, like having good entries to the clinch and using good footwork on the clinch to get your back out of the cage. They're also very good at timing people that are moving when they're circling. But yeah, I think a lot of fighters will. I think every fighter should know how to box in the back foot, just in case. As you can tell, like Jose Aldo didn't spend the bulk of his career like dancing on the outside, but he can do it very well because he had very good and solid fundamentals, and we have seen like very good performances of Aldo in the back foot, especially like the rematch against Edgar. He also played a lot of back foot at moments against Munoz and looked like brilliant. So I think that's more reliable than the more like gimmicky side, like Wonderboy that we were talking early. But yeah, I think a lot more fighters, if they want to be successful, they need to develop a way, not necessarily like completely an outbox game, but a way to fight from the back foot. I mean, we've seen fighters that develop this, like for example, like Justin Gaethje and Poirier are like, obviously they are not out fighters, but if they're put on the back, like they have counters, they have tools, they are not completely lost once they're put in that position. And I think a lot of fighters need to develop that. My boy Ronan asks me, is life different as a hot person, or does it feel generally the same? Do you notice people staring at you when you walk due to your beauty? Yes. Wordsmith Wench asks me, do you think current fighters who politically align with Dana are given preferential treatment? Actually, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think the fighter, just for being like a Republican or like like an asshole, like like Dana White just gets like preferential treatment immediately. I think fighters that suck up to the UFC but also have something to offer, like, because if you are like you talk the UFC big time when you're a nobody, like the UFC doesn't care. But once you have some eyes on you and you do the good like PR thing, like, oh, the UFC is great, the UFC is paying us nice, I think you do get preferential treatment for sure once you're in that position. But I think the UFC, like, most of the time doesn't care about their fighters. So even if they are like, oh, Dana is too great and this and that, I don't think they really care. Once you get like to top 15 and you're like a popular fighter, and you also on top of that add the whole, oh, the UFC is great, Dana has been so good to me, I think then you'll start seeing some benefits. Faraday 1.2.0 asks me, Pyotr versus Merab, who wins? This one is kind of intriguing. I think I have to go with Jan because yeah, I mean, Merab is not very good at the thing that Sterling does, that is holding people down. I mean, he has the pace, he has the toughness, so he can be problematic for Jan, but I think Jan is just too good in his scrambles, and he's just too good at hurting people in transition. He's just a better striker than Merab. But Merab is one of the most interesting fights for Jan in the sense that we would get some answers about Pyotr. Not necessarily as an exciting fight, even though I think it would be very exciting because Pyotr Jan makes everything exciting. And Merab, even though I'm not a huge fan, he always pushed the action, even if not always in the most entertaining way. Against Jan, he would be very fun, I would say. Diamond Elbows asks me, how do you honestly rate Prime Jones' top game? I'm not sure. I mean, we never. I mean, obviously he was very heavy from top position, and I'm not saying because he was large. I say he had a very strong, like, wrestling base from top position. He was very good at holding people in half guard, especially, and obviously he was very good at using his length to just strike people like from close guard. So I think overall, Jones' game was very strong at his prime. But yeah, I mean, we saw against like more competent guys that presented like special challenges. For example, Gustafsson, even very tired, was able to get back, probably because of the length parity. Like most of Jones' meta was revolving about being the long guy. And also DC, who was a tremendous scrambler, Jones wasn't able to keep down. So it's not like the top game from Jones was game over, but I do think he was very solid fundamentally, and knew how to take advantage of his attributes, and that's always been one of Jones' greatest assets, I would say. He's very smart about using his natural attributes to the fullest. And he also asked Prime Stipe versus Prime Fedor, either ring or an octagon. Seeing the first DC versus Stipe fight, I think Prime Fedor probably a lot of problem for him. It would be interesting to see Fedor dealing with the single leg and a guy who can actually jab. So for sure a good fight, good between the best to ever do it at heavyweight. I still think Fedor is just too fast, and especially the kind of punching. He has the kind of punching style that troubles Stipe. Stipe very good at getting up, so I don't think the top position from Fedor would be very dangerous. But yes, the punching, because Fedor was such a good striker at his prime. I think the style matchup is problematic for Stipe. Jermaine asked me, how much more do you think MMA could improve? It is still a very young sport, but it's honestly kinda unfathomable to think of fighters who would operate at even a higher levels than some of the top fighters today, like Volk, Jan, Holloway, etc. I think I think the average level of MMA will for sure improve the next year, or not for sure, but should improve, especially if fighter pay gets better. I think we should see a higher level. When it comes to the top of the top, I think we're seeing very close to like peak MMA right now. Some fighters might come up maybe in the future that are better, but I don't think like champs will get like for sure better than they are now. I don't think so. I think from now on, especially at the highest level in the good divisions, like for example bantamweight and featherweight, the thing that we'll see is that the meta games will change, and the fighters that we'll see as champions will be fighters that are two things. One, they are very good everywhere, they have a very coherent game, and two, they are good at exploiting the metagame. And I think those are two things that will remain constant in the evolution of MMA. I don't think fighters will get like way better than prime Jose Aldo. No, I don't think so. But when it comes to the average fighter, yes, I think we will still see a few good years of improvement. What are the factors that make a good back foot performance in MMA? So we've talked a little about outboxing already here. Even though he's asking about back foot, that is not the same. But I think some things to consider here is that it's very important that being in the back foot does not mean you're not proactive. You need to be proactive, you need to be feigning constantly, you have to be moving your opponent with your footwork. And also like back foot, you can have activity, you can leave, and you can counter. So I think the most important thing is that when you're on the back foot, you have to take control of the fight. Like going backwards doesn't mean that the other fighter is controlling you. Like you can move around the other fighter, you can make him do stuff via feigns or via your attacks. And I think that's very important, is always being proactive and leading the other fighter in the directions that you want. Propaganda Huey Do and Louis asks me, are Leglocks back? I mean, as a finishing tool, I think they are still pretty niche. We're seeing a few more fighters finishing them, but I think Leglocks will always be important in the meta of ground game in MMA because they allow to generate scrambles for a lot of positions. And for sure, some fighters will be very good at finishing them, but a lot of fighters need to be aware of the leglock game because they generate scrambles. But also, if you're not careful about that, like you might get finished. So, leglocks are as like this big finishing spree. I don't think so, but I think leglocks as part of the scrambling game of MMA are here to stay for the long run. Giant Squirrel asked me, we've seen a lot of elite BJJ practitioners not have great success in the UFC. What is the current BJJ application meta in MMA? That's interesting. I think you gotta understand that there are some things in MMA that are different than in like even no-gi grappling. For sure is the cage and the gloves are like the most obvious thing. Like you're not using gloves in no-gi grappling, and for most federations there's no cage. So you have to be aware of that. And obviously there's also the ground pound. Those are like the things that modify MMA. It's also like in grappling competitions, like people are there to grapple. Like no one is avoiding grappling completely. No one is trying to be Brendan Schaub against Cyborg all the time in grappling competitions. That I think that's a thing. So I think a lot of fighters like transition like very late into their careers and struggle with the wrestling meaning like taking someone down that doesn't want to be taken down, doesn't want to engage in grappling. And I think anti-grappling and defensive grappling are easier to learn than being very good at offensive grappling. So I think the BJJ transfers that will always like have the most success are those that incorporate the grappling in a very coherent game, that have a system to link the striking, the wrestling, and their elite grappling, and also are the ones that just happen by chance or by design to have a style that exploits the current meta. For example, as I was talking earlier about the back takes, like a lot of fighters are giving up their backs nowadays, and I don't know, like 10 years ago fighters were not given their back and were stuck in bottom position for whole rounds. I think those things are constantly changing, and I think elite grapplers are like sometimes might be better equipped to deal with those like loopholes in the meta. He also asked, what criteria, in your opinion, should be applied when determining an MMA all-time GOAT? Do you think hypothesizing about size parity matchups or hypothesizing who would have had the most success against various fighters is a legitimate way of determining a GOAT? I mean, the GOAT talk is very subjective. I think one of the big things to consider here, and in my opinion at least, is that what we have seen a GOAT contender do. Like, for example, as a lot of people know, I'm of the position that Aldo is the best of all time, and I think it's because we saw Aldo like deal with so many different elite fighters and styles, and doing like stuff that is like so good at the top level. And on the other hand, we have fighters like Khabib that other people might argue is the GOAT, and for me there's a lot of questions there. Obviously that he's very good. I'm not saying he's not a GOAT contender, obviously he's great, but I think when it comes to me, at least, to determining why Aldo is better, is because I have more answers about Aldo's game. And that's not obviously necessarily Khabib's fault, but it's some things that you cannot just answer. And when it comes to hypothesizing, as you say, I think the fighters that have shown more have a bigger advantage there, because in a lot of hypothetical matchups, when it comes to Khabib, for example, you don't know. Like, what happens if Khabib like faces like Joseph Benavidez, that is like a tremendous scrambler, has so many answers that most of his opponents didn't have when it comes to the scrambling positions, and also have like a powerful striking approach. Maybe Khabib can hold him down, but like really we don't know. We can just hypothesize. When it comes to Aldo, like, we've seen him do a lot of stuff, and it's still I guess when you play the hypothetical matchup, but it's a more informed guess in that sense. For example, if you say like Aldo versus Jones, I've seen Aldo deal with people that do like similar stuff to Jones. I've seen Aldo deal with that for sure. I've seen Aldo defend against wrestlers. I've seen Aldo fight long kickboxers. I've seen Aldo fight like counter punchers in the pocket. So yeah, I mean, it's important to have enough data before you go into hypotheticals. Muay Thai Chi tells me, how can we get DC to learn some basic boxing concepts so his commentary on striking makes some sense? Do not think that's possible right now. Like I mean, and DC doesn't strike me as someone that really is going out of his way to learn anything at this stage of his life. Dial asked me, this fight announcement rumor kind of went under the radar. Thoughts on Merab versus Corey? Also, best body kickers in MMA. Merab versus Sanhagen is interesting because I think Merab would struggle keeping Sanhagen down because Sanhagen does a lot of his scrambly stuff that relies a lot on him being very long, and I don't think Merab has the answers to that. I think he would take him down a lot, but Sanhagen would get up and up again, and I think Merab showed a lot of vulnerabilities on the striking against Marlon. So I think I pick Corey, but you never know if Merab like can find some way to keep like Corey down, or maybe he tires him, but I doubt so, because like Corey just seems like so tough and his cardio seems like next level. So yeah, it might sound like concerning for Sanhagen fans on paper, but I think he wins that fight. Shane Kelly asked me what will be the next hot new technique that turns out doesn't actually work. I think like back fist with the rear hand, like when a fighter instead of throwing a left hook like throws the back fist. I mean that have some uses here and there, but I think a lot of people think that it will be the hot new thing like calf kicks, and nah, not happening. Ocelot MMA asked me thoughts on Magomed Rasul Gazanov, and to be honest, I've only seen the Frolov fight. I think he looked very good in that one, but I mean I will have to rewatch that and watch more fights. I think he looks to be like a very interesting prospect, but I couldn't go into details right now. Like I've only seen one fight. So George MMA _ asked me, who are the most underappreciated fighters ever? And why are they underappreciated, and why do you like them? Very interesting question, but I don't think I have a very good answer right now. Some of the most underappreciated, some that come to mind. I mean, Ian McCall was one of the best flyweights in the world, and I think a lot of people don't know about that. He was legit a very good fighter. Was beating like Demetrius Johnson on their first fight. Was looking great against Lineker, even though he lost that fight. And before that, he was a very good fighter. And I think a lot more people should know about him. Maybe Alvarez is a good call too. Like obviously he got embarrassed by Conor, but a great fighter. I think Eddie didn't have the greatest run in the UFC. Obviously the win against RDA was very good, but other than that, a lot of like boring fights and stuff that undermine how great was Eddie overall. I think he had a few fights, like for example the fight against Gaethje, that might put him in good light, but I think a lot of people like see him as like an action fighter that got to be champion, and he's way more than that. I don't know, man. Others, I'm pretty tired and I don't know right now. But there are a lot of underrated fighters. We should have a discussion about that on Twitter. Department of Home Goods Security asked me, we will see a decline in the UFC continental dominance. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think the way things are going right now, I don't think the UFC will like lose a step, especially like against 2-1 FC or something. Unless like a bigger player or like a big alliance happens. I only see the UFC getting stronger, sadly. I mean, it's cool to have all the best fighters under one organization, but the UFC is shit in a lot of sense. The fighters pay, the corporate policies. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm not seeing that changing anytime soon. Hunter W asked me which low or unranked fighters would beat the top 5 of their division right now. Oh man, Okay. I checked the rankings, and I'll tell you right now if I see someone that could like beat someone way up there. Oh my god, I'm so tired. I mean, in light heavyweight is so bad that I wouldn't be surprised that Yamaha Hill can like just move up and beat someone like way up in the rankings. Middleweight, I don't know. I don't see anyone right now there. In welterweight, maybe Rachmanov if he's as good as advertised. He has looked very good until now, so maybe. And she might have already did the thing, so he doesn't count. Lightweight, the winner of Gamrot and versus Sarukian has a very good shot of making stuff happen at the top of the division. In featherweight, I already said Topuria and Ivloev are like the guys to keep an eye on. And bantamweight, it's hard to tell. The top 5 is very, very solid. Everyone is good there, but I think that the top 5 is very solid. And then you have flyweight, and I don't know, flyweight it's sketchy. I mean, maybe Nicolau is not low ranked, but he's outside the top 5, and he could turn into something dangerous. And that would be my guesses. Is Pat Barry the worst corner in MMA currently? Yes. Thomas Bast asks, with Osman, Gaethje and Namajunas all showing some limitations in their last fights, is there a connection between that and Trevor Whitman's coaching? I don't think they're looking bad because they're Whitman, but I think they are for sure showing some of the cracks in Whitman's coaching style. I think him wanting to turn every fighter like into this like calculated back foot counterer is not very intuitive for every fighter. I think it doesn't fit Justin and Usman very well. But yeah, I think the limitations for sure show some signs of concern there. I think Whitman is very good at some stuff, but for sure the limitations are showing, and they're showing at with very elite fighters. So yeah, I think you're right. He also asked, how would an Oliveira versus Khabib fight go? I think Khabib is rough for him. Like the top control, Charles is very good at. It's very good at scrambling. It's hard to keep him down, but if you keep him down, like he doesn't have many answers. I think on the feet before he gets taken down, it's very interesting because he would bring the pressure, and Khabib doesn't like the pressure. He has a path to victory for sure there, like especially because he has good tight control in the clinch. He's very good with grips in the clinch as well. So I think that could be concerning for Khabib, and he can win like that for sure because he's so dangerous on the feet, the pressure he brings, and how clean he is with his striking. If he gets taken down or pushed against the fence, I don't know, man. I don't think Oliveira has the answers for the Khabib puzzle. And then Andrew asks, be the matchmaker for the top lightweights next fights. Okay, let me check the rankings real quick. Okay, so Oliveira next. I think he should fight. To be honest, I mean the Dariush fight. I would say just make the Dariush fight. I know Oliveira wants the Conor fight, but I'm not betting on Conor coming back. And even if he comes back, he doesn't deserve to fight for the title. But let's be real. Dustin versus Chandler sounds fine to me. Like sure, or we can make Dustin versus Justin again. Either of those would be fine. So for Justin, is either the Dustin fight or what else? Like I don't know. I would love to see the Makhachev fight if Makhachev is not fighting for the title. For Islam next is is either the title fight or Dariush for me. One of those. Chandler, I would say Dustin. Islam is also a good fight. I know Islam probably deserves the title shot, but I would like to see him against Chandler too. I'm adding like a lot of fights for Islam. Dariush, as I said, either like Makhachev or Charlie. RDA, man, I don't know about RDA. I think like just make the Fiziev fight happen like once and for all. Tony, I would say like fight someone outside the top 15. I don't know. I would say that. Fiziev, as I said, RDA. Then Sarukian is fighting Gamrot, and I think that's fine. I like that. Hooker would not fight Riddell. Because they are teammates, so I would say Ferreira. Yeah, let's have Carlos Diego Ferreira fight Hooker. And Riddle should fight like someone outside top 15 as well. I think that would be. And okay, guys, I think that's all. That was way longer than I was expecting. I think I got most of them. So if I did not answer your question in the video, just hit me out on Twitter and I probably answered there. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to do another Q&A, let me know. I'm always up to answer questions. If you want me to answer questions with more dedication and to do some actual research before doing this, I would say subscribe to our Patreon. Help us with some money, please. We are at the patreon.com. The fight site, I'll link below. With only $2, I think you can join our Discord, where you can chat with a lot of smart people, some a lot smarter than me. And that will be it. I'll let you guys go. I'll go to sleep right now. I'm very tired. Thank you for coming. Goodbye.